Good afternoon to you. 406 now, News Talk 105.9 WMAL, where we're making sense of the news. Coming up on the program, Andrew Kerr joins us from the Washington Free Beacon with brand new reporting on Congressman David Trone as he runs for Senate. You're going to want to hear this, and you can join us at 888-630-9625, 888-630-WMAL. All sorts of legal cases going on across the country as the left seeks to stop Donald Trump's reemergence as president of the United States. They'd like to stop the voters from having that option. There's a ongoing trial proceeding going on at the moment in New York as a video prostitute by the name of Stormy Daniels, Stephanie Clifford, is giving her thoughts about Donald Trump and titillating testimony. Yesterday, apparently, the jury was all very bored as they were going over, basic financial management at the Trump organization. Half of them were falling asleep. Now they bring out the porn lady, and everyone's leaning forward in their seats. It's all so preposterous. Of course, it's all an extension of the tyranny of the American left. For more on that subject and a really big deal coming out of Florida, let's get to Julie Kelly now. She's the author of the Declassified by Julie Kelly Substack and the book January 6, How Democrats Used the Capitol Protest to Launch a War on Terror Against the Political Right. Julie, good to have you back with us.
Hey, Vince. Thanks so much for having me on.
I don't want to dwell too long on Stormy Daniels here. Who wants to, really? But her testimony today, this is just an effort to tar and feather Donald Trump, right? I don't actually understand what the purpose of this is if it involves anything about a bookkeeping crime that's alleged by Alvin Bragg.
I mean, it is really a disgraceful attempt to humiliate him, to humiliate his wife. They're bringing up questions about Melania. This is so grotesque, Vince, on so many levels. These prosecutors and Alvin Bragg and this judge are just real lowlifes, and they don't care how they drag the American judicial legal system really to the bottom of the muck.
Yes.
As long as they, first of all, get their headlines, and number two, somehow, get a conviction here.
Yeah.
But today was a really disgraceful day.
And as I understand it,
jurisprudence.
Stormy Daniels, I guess, from the stand was making all sorts of detailed allegations about sexual conduct that she may have engaged in with Donald Trump at some point. And again, I don't know what that has to do with a bookkeeping crime at all. But in the process, Trump's team kept making objections. And when they finally came back from a recess, Trump's team says, hey, we're going to seek a mistrial here because this is just entirely prejudicial. This is insane. All you're doing is trying to leave the jury with some sort of really toxic impression of Trump that has nothing to do with the crimes that are alleged, Julie.
Correct. And apparently from some reporting, and Judge Merchan, who is, of course, presiding over this circus, this farce, I think even he started to realize that it was backfiring, warned the prosecution, let's keep your witness on track here.
Yeah.
Apparently she was slurring. She was making sexual comments from the stand. But now, and yes, but the prosecutors were asking Stormy Daniels for details about this alleged sexual encounter. She was not just offering it. These are government lawyers asking this piece of trash, who we know has already lied and had to pay Donald Trump for lying, and asking this piece of trash prosecutor, a piece of trash witness, asking details that can't be proven or disproven, quite frankly, about this alleged sexual encounter. Just despicable. And apparently even the jury was starting to repel about the details in Stormy Daniels' performance today.
Wow. And just so this is a live, obviously, interview and conversation. And we are seeing images, Donald Trump having stepped out of the courtroom just as Julie was speaking, pumped his fist to the press and kept walking, didn't stop to speak to them at all. Let me move on to another case involving Donald Trump. This is the document dispute with the Biden administration led by Jack Smith. There were some court filings on Friday that seem to indicate that the FBI is now admitting, and Jack Smith is admitting, that the federal government has mishandled the evidence in this case. And in fact, it looks like planted evidence at the scene in Mar-a-Lago by bringing classified document cover sheets and placing them over whatever they had placed all over the floor and tried to, misrepresent Trump as some sort of reckless keeper of the nation's secrets. What can you tell us?
Right. So this was a late Friday night filing by Jack Smith, which is, of course, always a red flag that everyone should immediately run and see what dirt the government is trying to hide. And certainly this was the case. Finally, after more than 20 months of that infamous photo of alleged classified documents sprawled on the floor of Mar-a-Lago representing, the contraband that FBI agents seized out of Mar-a-Lago, what we finally learned, actually what I pieced together, I went back to that court filing where that photo was attached back in August of 2022. Fast forward to both defense motions and Jack Smith's motion that proves, and Jack Smith admitted this, that FBI agents brought to the raid those colored cover sheets denoting various classification levels. Now, the excuse that Jack Smith gave is that those cover sheets were going to be used as placeholders within boxes, as you can imagine, boxes that have a lot of other content, a lot of other files. So what FBI agents allegedly were doing, taking the so-called classified document out of that box, replacing it with one of these cover sheets to indicate to investigators later on this is where it was found. Well, guess what else they used it for? For the photo stunt, meaning they doctored evidence because, Vince, there's no way for us to know that this cover sheet, blaring red, top secret human intel cover sheet, that actually represented the document that they paper clipped to that cover sheet that was spread on the floor. There were at least 7 of these cover sheets attached to various documents. So that was a stunt. They doctored evidence. They were taking classified materials. And how do we even know that the FBI agents were accurate? Were they also intelligence experts as they were raiding Mar-a-Lago? So this was all another political stunt.
Well, isn't there also
misleading the public and misleading the judge on this as well?
Isn't there also a dispute about whether the documents were classified at all? So the federal government could be lying in the court filing by declaring documents that have been declassified to actually be classified. Wouldn't that be lying to the court?
Well, the search warrant, as you will recall, authorized the FBI to take any papers that had classified markings on them of any kind. But to your point, Vince, that doesn't mean that the FBI agent would know if that particular record has been declassified, because it's not like you take a big stamp and say, oh, this is declassified. So they naturally would not know.
Well, not especially if you're the president. Whatever the procedures might be outside of the president of the United States, there's a process for that. But this is the president of the United States. He can declassify information at whim. He can take a piece of paper and hand it to a civilian that says classified all over it and say, read this out. You can do that.
Right. So in addition to the doctoring of the photo and questions as to how these FBI agents knew for sure that these records were classified in the way that they denoted in these cover sheets, more, I think, damaging and problematic for Jack Smith is 2 other revelations. Number one, that the placeholders are not in the same location that they were after the initial raid. And this is something that Jack Smith admitted to, that the condition of the 34 some odd boxes that they took out of Mar-a-Lago are not in the same condition. The contents are not in the same order as they were after the raid. Well, the question is, why not? And he gave excuses. Well, some of the boxes had smaller items like index cards and books, so material shifted around because, of course, they flew the boxes from Miami to the hopelessly corrupt Washington FBI field office where the investigation took place. Even more problematic, and this is what we're waiting for Judge Cannon to rule on this week, another order, is that the cover sheets that they used as both a prop and a placement, Jack Smith just admitted that they can't connect that placement sheet with the actual document that they took out of the box. How then are you going to use these classified documents if one of them represents one of the espionage counts or the obstruction count? How can you lose track between a placement sheet and the actual classified document that's supposed to represent a crime? So this is imploding on many levels. Judge Cannon has now put off an important hearing that was supposed to take place this week. She has delayed it. She said she is going to issue another order this week in relation to these new revelations that came out last week.
Okay. So that's what I wanted to get to next is Eileen Cannon. Do you get the sense that she's going to suffer this for much longer? How strict is she going to become with Jack Smith?
I mean, I know there are some suggestions that she might issue contempt of court because another major scandal here is that Jay Brett, the lead prosecutor for Jack Smith, intentionally misled Judge Cannon in a hearing last month. I was there. It was April 14th hearing. She directly asked Jay Brett, are these boxes, because the defense attorneys were already complaining about the access and the condition of the contents of these boxes. And she said, are they in the original intact form as when they were seized? Jay Brett replies, yes, they were, with the exception of the classified document being replaced by a placeholder. Okay, fine. That is a lie. And Jack Smith had to admit it in his filing in a footnote last Friday, saying, we do admit that this was not the proper characterization of how we described it, the government described it during that hearing. No, you lied. Because Jay Brett has known he's been on this investigation since the beginning. He was at Mar-a-Lago in June of 2022 to retrieve documents for the subpoena. He knows this inside and out. He knows that those boxes have been disturbed. He knows that the evidence and contents inside of them have been shifted around. And now he knows that the placeholder piece of paper does not match the records in some instances of the evidence that they have against Donald Trump and his co-defendants. So she stayed this order for this important hearing that was supposed to take place. She said she's going to issue an order soon. I expect she is going to, rip a you-know-what on Jack Smith and the government, because she's been watching this since October of 2022, which is why she appointed a third party, told the DOJ and FBI, I don't trust you to go through this evidence appropriately. Remember, she appointed the special master. She was overturned by the appellate court. This is exactly why. She has known from day one how dirty this case is. It's gotten even dirtier. That's why she's unsealing and unredacting information so the American people can see it. And now Jack Smith has walked right into it, and she's not going to let him off the hook.
I hope she doesn't, because I feel like, out of all the judges that are handling these cases, she seems to be the only one with a semblance of real fairness. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe there are others, but she should use her perch to really smack them down, because the tyranny is just out of control. I mean, you're watching all of these cases really closely. And they're not following the standard procedures or rules that most Americans are supposed to be afforded.
Exactly right. And she is extremely tough. She is very smart. She's very thorough and prepared for her court hearings. She already suggested, as soon as she got this classified documents case, that the defense should file something related to grand jury abuse, which is also something we're expecting to see grand jury materials, because the investigation took place in the Trump-hating cauldron of Washington, D.C., in that federal courthouse, so they could get whatever they wanted out of the Democratic judges there, which they did. And now she is looking for information about how that grand jury process went down. There's also allegations of prosecutorial abuse by Jay Brett, threatening one of Trump's, his co-defendant's lawyer, threatening that he would scuttle a judicial nomination application that this defense attorney had if he did not get Walt Nauta, a very close personal aide to Donald Trump, did not get him to flip against Trump and become a government witness. When Donald Trump calls these people thugs, he's actually being too nice. This is as dirty, as dishonest, as low life and corrupt as you can possibly imagine. And fortunately, at least in this instance, we have a judge who is courageous enough and tough enough and is fed up with this, that she is not going to let Jack Smith get away with this as much as she possibly can restrain him from doing so.
All right. Julie Kelly, thank you as always for your coverage of this important topic and so many others. Again, you can get to her at the Declassified by Julie Kelly Substack. Thank you, Julie, so much.
Thanks, Vince, for having me on.
The left is still fantasizing about locking Donald Trump up in any jail cell they can possibly put him in. Eric Adams, the mayor of New York, was just asked today, are you prepared? Is Rikers Island prepared to imprison Donald Trump? Here's Eric Adams.
So at President Trump's trial, they were talking about how he might end up in jail if he continues to violate his court orders. Is Rikers prepared for that? Do you guys have those discussions yet?
By the way, that laughter was from a female government official sitting at the table. Eric Adams, I guess, conducts these press conferences with a bunch of other New York City government officials who are all, he wants to spread the blame around. They all sit there at the table and they handle the questions. She starts giggling at the question.
Do you guys have those discussions yet? And if so, what would that even look like?
Our amazing commissioner, she is prepared for whatever comes on Rikers Island, and I'm pretty sure she would be prepared to manage and deal with the situation. As you see what's happening with Harvey Weinstein. We have to adjust, in this business, particularly around law enforcement, we have to adjust whatever comes our way, but, we don't want to deal with a hypothetical, but they're professionals. They'll be ready.
You haven't had those discussions with corrections yet?
I'm sorry?
You haven't had those discussions with corrections about that situation?
Yes, we have. We've been planning on how to jail Donald Trump at Rikers Island. The mayor of New York City confirming we've had those conversations. That's what they want to do. Will they? We'll see. That courtroom today, a woman called Stephanie Clifford. You might know her as Stormy Daniels. She used to have a creepy porn lawyer. She's testifying today in New York and trying to give all sorts of very scandalous details about Donald Trump and bedroom activities. It has nothing to do with anything that's been alleged here, but the left loves it. They love it. I'll give you the details. She has been questioned by the defense today. We've got some updates there, too. That's ahead. Hey, good afternoon to you. It is 4:35 here, News Talk 105.9 WMAL, where we're making sense of the news. Coming up, Andrew Kerr joins us from the Washington Free Beacon with some new reporting on Congressman David Trone. The man is running for Senate in Maryland. We'll talk to him about what he found. That's ahead at 5. You can talk to us at 888-630-9625, 888-630-WMAL. Stormy flipping Daniels in court today. She has all sorts of things to claim about Donald Trump. She's previously lost a number of lawsuits against him as she made ridiculous claims about him. She keeps losing, and then she has these big legal bills to pay. She's back again. Donald Trump, at the conclusion of the court proceeding, President Trump walking out as he does each day. He gives a morning statement and an afternoon statement. His afternoon statement just began moments ago. Here it is.
What do you think of Stormy's testimony?
So this was a very big day, a very revealing day. As you see, their case is totally falling apart. They have nothing on books and records, and even something that should bear very little relationship to the case. It's just a disaster for the DA, for the Soros-backed DA. It's a disaster. This whole case is just a disaster. If you read the legal scholars, you'll see, because they're writing about it, they've never seen anything quite like it. And neither have I. I should be out campaigning right now. We're leading in all the polls. I'd like to be campaigning. We'd be leading by a lot more. But I just want to appreciate the job you're doing. It's not easy standing there all day waiting, but you're hearing the same things that we're hearing. On another matter, as you know, it's Biden's backers that seem to be funding what's going on with the Palestinians. They're probably not Palestinians, they're agitators. Bad agitators, really bad. And I think our government ought to find out who they are, where they're from, and treat them the same way as they do the J6 hostages. You got to treat them the same way. These are agitators. They're really hurting our country. It's happening all over the country in cities. You saw what happened last night at the Metropolitan Museum. These are agitators. And in some of the colleges, I think it's about 20% student and 80% others. So this is a big problem, and they better nip it on the bud. And it's a problem from the left, not from the right. This is a problem from the left. And I hope you're going to stress that. The economy is not doing well. You see inflation is through the roof. They're not going to be able to lower interest rates. If they do, it's purely political. But it'll be very bad if they do from the standpoint of getting rid of inflation. You have to get rid of the inflation. Inflation, as you probably have heard me say, it's a country buster. It busts countries, and it has for 1,000 years. You go back and you look at old-time Germany, you look at a lot of countries that went through the kind of inflation we're going through, and they're busted. They are just broken up in many cases into little pieces, and that's what could actually happen to us. So we have to get inflation under control. We have to get prices down so that people can breathe, people can live, so they can live. But again, this was a very revealing day in court. Any honest reporter would say that. I would recommend you read Jonathan Turley and Andrew McCarthy and Alan Dershowitz, Greg Jarrett, Mark Levin, very talented people, and others. There's some incredible people out there that are writing about this trial. They're calling it a disgrace. It's a disgrace. In the meantime, I'm stuck. I'm here. Instead of being in Georgia, instead of being in New Hampshire, instead of being in Wisconsin, and all the different states that we wanted to be in, we're not able to be there because we're stuck in this trial, which everyone knows is a hoax. Thank you very much. Thank you.
So revealing today.
Should there still be a mistrial?
Why is the case a disaster?
What do you think, dummy? I wish I was standing there next to that guy. What a stupid question. That's it. So that's Donald Trump walks away. President Trump gone. His gigantic legal team trails behind him. Secret Service protection all ahead, away from the camera bay there. And so first of all, I just want to emphasize what a genius communication strategy this is. So as long as you're going to be tied up by the left in this court process, which is designed to upend your campaign, that's the whole point of it, use it to your advantage to the best that you can. And he has been squeezing this thing for every advantage he could. The left is so stupid. There's no question that they're devious and conniving, but they also have a tremendous amount of stupidity when it comes to how they're going to conduct these attacks. This is blowing up in their faces in, I think, a relatively predictable way. As they try and tie him up in court, and as they brag about their fundraising prowess, we've raised so much money for a guy who really shouldn't get any, Biden. What's happened is all of the earned media is when you don't pay for media attention. It's when you somehow get news networks to cover your activities or your business or whatever you're selling or whatever you're interested in advancing. In the industry, the media industry, you call that earned media. You come up with a publicity stunt of some kind, and then all of a sudden your thing is all over all these news outlets, and nobody's paying advertising dollars to get it there. It's called earned media. Well, by subjecting Trump to this, they're forcing the nation's news networks to be in this position where this is the presidential race. Also, Trump brings ratings. So all these cameras are there, and in the morning and in the evening, Trump has free reign to make a statement of his choosing. Now, the judge has tried to limit him. The judge has tried to impose this unconstitutional gag order on him that says you can't talk about anything related to how deeply unfair and selective this trial is. You can't talk about that. You can't talk about the prosecutors. You can't talk about the people from Biden's DOJ who were involved in this. You can't talk about the fact that they were paid on the payroll of the Democrat National Committee. You can't talk about that. Can't talk about the fact that the judge is a Biden donor. You can't talk about that his daughter is a hardened Democrat political activist working to get Joe Biden reelected. You can't talk about that. And so Trump is trying the best he can. Now, Trump has he run afoul of the gag order? Apparently so, some 10 times. He's already been fined, I think, at least $10,000 now. $10,000, which I think for a billionaire is chump change, but my sense is that most people who became billionaires don't become billionaires by thinking of $1,000 as chump change. Usually, try and guard their money. They don't want to overspend on things. But $1,000 a penalty, and that's the most the judge can do. Now the judge is saying, well, I'm going to put you in jail. You better be careful. Jail time for you is coming. And you heard from Mayor Eric Adams a moment ago. I played some audio for you saying, we're ready. Rikers is ready. Rikers Island. For the former and likely future president of the United States, New York says Rikers is ready. And they don't pause for a moment to say, that's crazy. Eric Adams didn't hesitate. Yeah, Rikers is ready, he says. Did you talk to them? Did you talk to the Yes, we've talked to them. We're ready to go. Are you nuts? Are you listening to yourself? Do you see how third world this is? So, but the beauty of these statements from Trump are that he does it all on his own terms. This is, I don't know if this is Trump's idea specifically. I don't know if it's just that he's getting good guidance from his campaign or his lawyers or what it is. But there's a basic formula to these Trump statements. Trump delivers remarks. He talks about anything he feels like talking about. You know, Trump, he doesn't want to be hemmed in. He doesn't want somebody hanging over his shoulder saying, don't talk about this, don't talk about that. He's the kind of guy who's going to rebel against that advice, by and large. So my thinking is, my educated thinking on this subject, having watched him and talked to him and talked to people around him through the years, is that what probably happened here is somebody said to him, somebody he trusts, do these statements, do them on your own terms, talk about whatever you'd like to talk about, you know, within the confines of trying to avoid stepping on the gag order. The only thing I ask is don't take any questions from the press. They're going to lead you down rabbit holes. These reporters are going to try and suck you into rabbit holes. Just don't take any questions. It's legally perilous and it's going to create distractions. You should set the entire terms of the way that you're covered to the extent that you can handle that at all. Now, the left-wing press is going to distort everything you say no matter what you say. But to the extent that you can control any of this, control it here. And he's doing it. And what is the effect of it? His poll numbers have never been better. His support has never been better. He's dominating Biden in every one of these swing states. And to the extent that you ever see any of them close, like Michigan, very few polls are indicating that right now. Demographic shift is unbelievable right now towards Trump. Now, this is not, of course, an invitation to sit home and not participate in Election Day. Somebody else got it. Oh, the Latino vote will cover me. No, that's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying that that as a campaign strategy, this has been successful. Now, that brings us to today's court proceeding. Today, what was Trump walking out from? Well, it was Stormy Daniels. The prosecution, Alvin Bragg's team today, and remember, the case is all about, did they properly categorize a payment for a non-disclosure agreement? That's the whole case. And the reason they can apparently bring it now, as experts like Jonathan Turley and so many other legal experts have been saying, the reason they think they can bring it now is because if you altered a record in an effort to break some other law, then it qualifies to bring the case now. Now, they're not even clear on what the other law is, which is a bizarre feature of this very tyrannical court process where they're using the justice system in this way. How could you not be clear on what the law is that he's breaking? Shouldn't the accused know what laws they stand accused of breaking? Yes, obviously. But that's not happening here with Trump. So he's not allowed to talk and he's not allowed to know what laws he's breaking. But they bring out, yesterday they had a couple of people who worked for the Trump organization who were going through the financial records, and they were the ones, they were very boring. They were very boring. They were like, your typical boring billionaires accountants. They were asking them, how do you classify payments? How do you actually manage the process for the Trump organization? And they were revealing that, so when they're sending money to Michael Cohen, who then turns around and hands it to, say, a person like Stormy Daniels in a non-disclosure agreement, the money, when it goes out the door, they have a drop-down menu. You ever do your taxes and you have to figure out how to categorize your expenses? You ever do that? Especially you small business owners know this, that you have to do that. You've got to figure out a way to categorize your expenses. What did you spend money on? And you start establishing broad categories for each item, office supplies, these types of things. And so they had a drop-down menu, and one of the items on the drop-down menu from a limited array of options was legal expenses. So they click legal expenses because they're sending money to who? The lawyer, Michael Cohen. So they were explaining to the jury yesterday, all we do is click the drop-down menu and we click legal expenses. That was it. That's the entire scandal. It's a cover-up. No, it's a drop-down menu. It's not a cover-up. They literally sent the money to him. And so today, almost as a way to reward them for the boring testimony yesterday, they brought the porn lady out. Stormy Daniels, like, here's the good stuff now, where she's going to talk about her sexual encounter with Donald Trump. And what did she get into? Well, all sorts of lurid details, she claims. She went up and she saw Trump, and he was dressed in his pajamas, and he said, let me get changed into my suit. We're going to dinner. And then he got changed into his suit, and then the two of them, they go off to dinner, and they have this night, and then they come back, and Trump convinces her to sleep with him, and on and on and on. And she's giving graphic detail about her allegations. And Trump's team keeps raising objection after objection after objection, saying, how is this relevant to the law that Trump is alleged to have broken here? How is this even relevant? It got so bad that at one point, Judge Merchan even had to kind of warn the prosecution, hey, get your witness under control. This is getting a little too crazy, a little too much. You don't need to say all that. And then eventually Trump's team says, we're seeking a mistrial. They sought a mistrial earlier today. And the judge, Merchan, you know what he did with that. He instantly rejected it. He said no. No. He said, if you don't like what she said, you should have raised more objections. What? I mean, Merchan was up there also complaining about what was coming out of Stormy Daniels' mouth. And he instantly says, no mistrial. I'm not going to entertain that. The cross-examination also took place today. And where you have the defense team getting together, finally asking some questions. And there's a bunch of things that happened here. One of Trump's lawyers was, according to the Associated Press, pressing Stormy Daniels on the fact that she owes Trump hundreds of thousands of dollars in legal fees because she has previously accused him of defamation. One of the reasons she accused him of defamation, if you remember a couple years back, she alleged that she had been threatened. Somebody had come up to her and her apparently young daughter and threatened her. And this is when she was represented by Michael Avenatti. He said, you better not talk about Trump anymore if you know what's good for you. And that little girl too. And so she and Michael Avenatti, who's now in prison for being a fraudster, just so you know, the two of them produce an image that they share exclusively on the place where everyone gets their news, The View. This is back in 2018. They go on The View together, Michael Avenatti and Stormy Daniels, and they're like, we have a picture of the suspect. It's a sketch. So they released this sketch on national television, and I swear to you, it looks exactly like Tom Brady. That Tom Brady threatened her in a parking lot. So Trump at the time, Trump was like, this is ridiculous. That didn't even happen. I don't think he used the words Tom Brady. I didn't ask Tom Brady to threaten her, but you see the picture, you're like, that's Tom Brady. So Trump denied that had ever taken place. He's like, that's ridiculous. So she sues him and she loses. So she owes Trump legal fees for that. And she still hasn't paid him. She still hasn't paid him to this day. She admitted during the court proceedings today that she hates Trump and that she hopes he goes to jail at the end of this in front of the jury. So more in a second. I'll try and give you more of the details of what happened inside of that courtroom. It's annoying that we can't just have, audio from it. I've got to share from the transcript, but it is what it is. The left likes to hide some of this behind closed doors. All right, let's see. Stormy Daniels testifying in court today. I don't know if the 2018 letter she wrote came up at all where she denied having any affair whatsoever with Donald Trump in her own signature. That would be kind of relevant, wouldn't it? It's just amazing. Scott's in Castleton, Virginia, line 1. Scott, good afternoon. You're on the Vince Colonnese Show.
Hey, Vince. Thanks for taking my call.
Yes, sir.
Hey, aside from all this courtroom nonsense, I don't believe for a second that Donald Trump had an affair with the porn star. Because, first of all, look at all his wives. They're all gorgeous. They're all successful. I mean, that's attractive. But the other thing is, Trump's a germaphobe. You really think that he's going to be intimate with a woman that has sex with men for a living? I don't think so.
Yeah, that's a pretty decent piece of evidence. He's got all sorts of theories about how to maintain cleanliness and what to avoid. Germaphobe is right. And she's been, running around with Michael Avenatti. Where's he these days? That's right. He's in jail for fraud. So you may very well be right, Scott. But regardless, this is the kind of thing that's not meant to address any actual crime or anything. It's just meant to humiliate Trump and his family. That's the point of this. Coming up, Andrew Kerr joins us. We'll talk to him about his latest reporting on a Democrat, David Trone.